This is the unrestricted free agent.
The Jimbo Fisher stuff. Were you in the room the other day when he threw?
I was. Part of the reason we had so much fun beating Clemson was because we used to talk a lot of shit to them and they couldn't handle it.
You feel fine, but your hands are shaking.
Coach Spurrier couldn't give a damn.
I want to take these athletes and mentor them.
Why can't the Gamecocks win at the SEC tournament?
So sunny all the time, so hot.
Too sunny.
Too sunny.
Fans are going to be fans, and people who understand the sport are going to talk sports.
With some weird dynamics.
It's going to be painful, but I think at the end of the day, we'll be stronger people for it.
Coffee down. Friday morning has begun, and we're that much closer to football season. Welcome in. Hope your Friday morning's off to a good start. A couple of Gamecocks in the end zone last night in the NFL. Kevin Harris, Patriots debut. If you haven't seen it, you don't have to rush right out and check out the highlights. It was a short touchdown run in an NFL exhibition game. Not the most exciting touchdown. Mike Davis also scoring for the Baltimore Ravens last night. His new NFL team seems to be off to a good start. I hope, again, we're getting the show off to a good start. Welcome Home continues to hit on nearly every single opportunity it gets from the Gamecock football standpoint. Get to more on that in just a minute. First, wanted to welcome some of you in. Those of you already participating, especially. Anthony is in D.C. Morning. He's already said good morning to me and Anthony since Anthony was the first one in at 7:32. Colette and the Tonester as well. Morning, guys. Shane Beamer and the social media team for Gamecock football, they do it again. They're making it look so easy, and it's not. It's not easy at all, especially when you have a goal in mind, a tough goal, which is to make a difference with your social media presence, right? Every big company seemingly out there, nearly every big company out there in a competitive marketplace in 2022 is trying to do this. And you could make the argument that Gamecock football is amongst the best at it these days. Kirby, welcome into you, sir. Good morning. And Chris on the Facebook live stream. Happy Friday, everybody. Go Cox, Chris says. So if you haven't seen the video, you just check it right out there on all the social media platforms. It was all over the place like usual last night. This is just what it's become. It has just been bullseye after bullseye after bullseye for Gamecock football here when it comes to the social media presence in general, but especially the recent videos released. It was the viral video as the Gamecocks headed over to Atlanta and SEC Media Days that really highlighted things, I think. And this one is about a 3-minute video. This is coming off of this was the day after the debut of the behind-the-scenes Welcome Home show hit that I think had most fans pretty excited about. And I give it about an 8 out of 10. Wasn't perfect. Pretty good, though. Last night's video, I think, sums up the difference between Shane Beamer and a lot of other college football coaches. And maybe it's surprising to me that other football coaches don't hit the mark as often or as well as Beamer does. But as I say that, I think it goes into the personality that Shane has that has separated him, that has endeared him to South Carolina fans as much and as well as it has so far, is that he has a unique ability. And this is what really good leaders across the board do. They have a really good ability to connect with wherever you are compared to him, to almost instantly analyze, okay, where you are on that spectrum, that connection spectrum, if you will, and to hit the mark, to realize how they can connect with you the best. And as fans, as college football fans, one thing that college football coaches don't do well is appreciate those fans. Now, they all say it, right? They all say, oh, we got the best fans in America, really appreciate our fans, really want our fans to come out and give us a great home environment. I know they're going to do it. But when you do it like that, and this, I talked about the delivery of a message being so important, and me coming to realize this with Shane Beamer, and I think even his reaction to Luke Doty's injury this time last year. Quarterback goes down. He's the only guy that really you were counting on and had a lot of promise. And he comes out vehemently at the time and says, no, we've got a hell of a team. And we got a bunch of good players, and one injury is not going to change our season. And he did it. How he did it was the most important thing. I remember Ray Tanner saying this multiple times when he was coaching the Gamecocks to a national championship. A lot of times it's not the message that whoever's on the receiving end has a problem with, it's the delivery of that message, how it's delivered. And it's really easy to say we appreciate fans, we love our fans are the best. How you do it matters in a big way, especially now in college football, where you're demanding more financially from your fans than ever before. And fans have so many more options than ever before, right? They want to support the program. They don't just call up the local alumni club and say, hey, let me give you my money. Or call up the athletics director and say, hey, I want to give X amount of dollars to the athletic department. Now, you got a collective you can go to. You got players you can go to directly. Say, look, let's make something happen here. You got recruits you can go to directly, unfortunately, even though it's against the rules, technically. But this video is a perfect example of not just saying you appreciate fans, of not just making sure your players say that or know that, but showing it. That you had a team meeting, video. Shane Beamer congratulates Brad Johnson for his birthday. Says, all right, we're going for a walk. Everybody down in the lobby. 10-minute walk. Hop down there, hop across the street from the still new facility. I'm probably going to be that old guy and call something that's years and years old new. They hop on the ramp at Williams-Brice Stadium and make that walk that so many tens and hundreds of thousands of Gamecock fans have done so many times. And then it's them sitting in the upper stands while Shane Beamer says, hey, this is commitment. This is who comes to your games, who pays to come to your games and look all the way up that stadium. People make that walk, and they make it all the way over from Rosewood. They make it all the way over from there where they pay to park, and they do this. And just, it's not a grand gesture, right? How difficult was that for Shane Beamer to do? To take time out of his program's day, right? Probably took him 30 minutes total, there and back. Whereas I think the previous coach at Carolina would have said, no, we got to meet. We got more important things to do. We got to talk about the overhang defender and a double dog robber defense, how we're going to make sure that everybody's defending that and the whole thing. Not seeing the big picture. That is the big picture. And not just doing that, then also the production of it. And yet it did not feel like it was some sort of publicity stunt, some sort of, excuse me, some sort of token, let's get our fans riled up. Let's do this for let's do something for the fans meeting. No, it didn't feel like that. I got no idea. That might have been exactly what it was, right? Hey, we need to get something in the middle of August to generate ticket sales or continue to get fans excited. Let's do this. I don't know if that's how it went down. I have no idea. Absolutely could have, right? You can't blame an athletic department for doing that. It's part of the business. Sell tickets. Where I think they're on a pace to to sell more than they have. I think it's the most they've sold season ticket wise since in about 10 years, which makes sense. We talked about the excitement around the program being what it is. So you didn't have to do this, and this is the time to do it, right? Not when you're Brian Harsin and on the hot seat, and it could be seen as a pretty transparent, hey, please like me, desperate attempt to rally support behind him. This is exactly when you do this. But you didn't have to at all. And most head coaches, I think, maybe older head coaches, more established head coaches would say, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to waste my time doing that. We've got more important things to do. There's so much preparation. There's so much installation. We're still just in year number 2. We got so many more things on the list of priorities that's way down there. And you missed the mark, man. And again, Gamecock football hits home, and Shane Beamer deserves a lot of the credit. Picks weighing in with a good morning and a happy Friday. Josh says, love that video. Why'd you love it, Josh? Is my question. Can you put words to that? I saw others reacting on social media last night saying, he's one of us kind of deal. And that's not true at all. Shane Beamer is the exact opposite from most college football fans. He couldn't be more different, right? He grew up the son of a Hall of Fame college football coach. He went on to play major college football for that Hall of Fame college football coach. Yeah, he did mention how hot it was going to be for Georgia. Authentic, yeah. No doubt it's going to be hot. To me, it's a unique ability that Shane Beamer has to feel like he understands you and okay, down to earth, believable. Yeah, but how? I don't think he's been a fan. He couldn't have been, right? When's the last time he could have been sitting in those stands? He didn't do it when he was growing up. He was on the sidelines holding the cords at the time for the headsets for his dad. Right? He played in college. Immediately after his college career, he's a graduate assistant onto a 21-year assistant coaching tenure. How can he specifically have any idea what it's like to be just a fan like most of us? He can't, personally. And yet, in that video, he absolutely came across like he had understood the experience. It's a unique ability, man. And then not only to have that ability, but for it to come across in a social media post, in a video, in a situation where that's the goal for it to come across kind of thing. It's a production, right? So kudos. Just another example. And another reason for Gamecock fans to certainly be excited. And the evidence continues to mount for why Shane Beamer is different than other college football coaches and why he is an excellent fit right now for the South Carolina football program. Doesn't mean anything when it comes to wins and losses, for sure. And wins are always the most important thing. But Guess what? Will Muschamp in South Carolina beat Georgia just a few years ago. So even winning isn't everything, right? A great vision and talented people working with him. Vision of the program, I think what Josh is talking about. I think what you got to give him credit for, and he's talked about it, about how good Justin King is and the social media team. And maybe I think a lot of times it's their vision that he trusts now. And that takes a humility that a lot of college football coaches lack as well. Jason, morning. He gives a Go Cox, and was that a Ric Flair? Woo! So if you guys haven't seen that video, certainly would recommend it and would love to hear your thoughts about it when you do. But to me, it is another one right on the mark, right on the bullseye, achieving exactly what it was, what you could only hope that it does, and builds that connection with the Gamecock football fan base. Also, it's not just that too. I'm trying not to look at this just in a tunnel, just in some sort of Gamecock echo chamber. Also saw other social media posts yesterday. Josh Pate, you guys done the late kick. I'm a fan of him. I think if you like college football, it's difficult not to be a fan of him. He loves college football, knowledgeable, and good at what he does. But he retweeted it last night, said something to the effect of every college football coach, like, he gets it. And every college football coach should, but not every college football coach does. I'll fill in the blank on that one. So one place to start this morning. Again, I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you should feel pretty good. A guy who could have continued his Gamecock career, but went on to the NFL in the end zone last night for the New England Patriots. 6th-round pick, Kevin Harris, NFL debut of sorts, exhibition game. Just a short yardage run, and the stats were not impressive last night. Handful of carries. I don't think got into double-digit yards. One catch for minus yards there. Patriots ended up losing to the Giants. But seeing him just in the Patriots uniform, being productive, getting in the end zone, will be fascinating to see how his NFL career evolves and what the Patriots specifically do. I mean, if there was one organization that I wouldn't want to go to as a running back, it would probably be the Patriots, just because how they've, through the years, done the opposite of focus their offense around a running back, of valued the running back position. So it's plug and play for those guys. But you want to go win? Absolutely, you go there. You want to maximize your individual career? Absolutely, where you don't want to go. A lot of that was Tom Brady years, though. So maybe things have changed a little bit. We'll see. The massive NFL story, and I wanted to mention Mike Davis also in the end zone. I didn't notice that for the Baltimore Ravens. His Ravens debut last night, pretty good, as expected. The massive story in the NFL. Tom Brady, not at Bucs camp, and for personal reasons. I think it's that last part. No, it's all of it, right? Missing training camp for any NFL player is odd. Tom Brady is always going to be a story. And then the explanation here only adds fuel to the fire. I don't understand why the Bucs didn't come out and say, when Brady announced, if they would have done this when Brady would have announced he was coming back, I think you get way out in front of this thing. It is not a distraction at all right now. What it is, the NFL story that kind of dominates conversation. Everybody's got a Gas Maggie hot take on now. I don't understand why they didn't get out in front of it and say, Tom Brady's he's coming back. He's going to do it a little differently than anybody else because he is different than everybody else. He's the only 40-plus guy on a roster in the entire league. 45. And he's accomplished more than any other NFL player by far. So, yeah, we're going to treat him a little differently than the undrafted rookie free agent in preseason camp. And if you don't understand that, then you are missing a lot of critical thinking skills. But for him just not to be there all of a sudden, and then for there not to be a public explanation for it other than personal reasons, and it is definitely an environment for people to start raising eyebrows. What I got to say is, yeah, he gets to play by different rules. He's earned it. That was part of the original agreement for him to come back. It was part of the original decision for him not to play football anymore. This was a big factor. Brett Favre was always talked about that too. I mean, people in football have talked about that forever. Just the season's great. The season can be a grind, but the real grind in football is preseason camp. The worst part, I think most people say by far, that just day after day after day, and it doesn't feel like it's going to end. Guys are going down left and right with injury. So Tom Brady's got no business. He wasn't going to play in the first couple exhibition games, so that kind of goes into the official reasoning here. So why not? Yeah, exactly. We're talking about practice, Josh. It's not that he doesn't have to practice, apparently. It's that he shouldn't be forced to. That's all. And then it doesn't. I get it. You want to be an old school, hard line guy. Oh, everybody's part of the team. You can't treat people differently. That's just dumb, man. That is a black and white, tunnel visioned way of looking at this situation for sure. But I would find it hard to believe that you wouldn't apply that to life in general. It's so much more nuanced than that, complicated than that, or not complicated in this case. Tom Brady's different. You got to treat him differently. He has earned a ton. It's like the Steve Spurrier, the end of Spurrier's career, where say he earned the right to go out how he wants to go out. You can criticize it all you want to, but 70 years old, man. You don't hold him to the same standard as everybody else. Or if you want to, go right ahead. But I didn't see it that way. Chris says he might be 45, but I bet you he's in better shape than some of those 20-year-olds. Better football shape, I'll give you. More prepared for the regular season than probably anybody. And that's what preseason camp is for, to prepare you for the season. No one is going to be more prepared than Tom Brady. And if you think missing some reps at preseason practice because he's got Julio Jones and he's a new receiver and the whole thing, come on, man. Come on. That's why, was it several years ago? I forget which year it was exactly, where there was the dispute between management and players and the lockout, and there weren't OTAs, and the preseason was shortened significantly or pushed back and the whole thing. Did it matter during the season? Was it a massively watered down or inferior product? No. No one cared. This is a sports thing for sure, but especially a football thing, where you have to have your structure and it has to be nearly year round. And you got to make sure that you have control of the situation as much as you do to the highest level, right? It's just It doesn't have to be that way. Craig, hit us up here with some details. No, I didn't see the Little League game last night. Phenomenal playing, he said. Interesting analysis. Phenomenal playing. Did see what I was watching baseball-wise last night was the Field of Dreams game. And I missed it last year. And it's one of those that I think you got to be paying attention to, or it's relatively easy to miss. But that, man, they definitely went all in the television production of this thing on Fox in so many ways. So it was a Cubs-Reds game. Cubs end up winning 4-2, I think, the final score. The game not notable from a Major League Baseball standpoint, but the setting certainly is, and the production that was made out of it certainly notable as well. I don't know about you guys, but I put Field of Dreams at the top of the list for baseball movies. And if you don't even want to consider it a baseball movie, I guess I get it, right? It's kind of a father-son thing or a personal journey drama kind of deal. To me, I don't overthink it that much. A lot of baseball in there, baseball movie. I put it at the top. Connected with it when I first saw it back in, I think, early high school days. An old movie. I'm an old dude. So I love the Field of Dreams movie. I like the concept. It got a little bit overboard for me last night. I think it's a cool deal for sure. I'm glad Major League Baseball is smart to do it. I think they'll end up hitting the right notes, I think, eventually in the production of this thing. Thought they went a little bit overboard. Like it, to me, baseball is such a great game in so many ways. You don't have to sell it dramatically in a lot of ways. Like there's just something about, like when Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey are out there playing catch, they come out of the cornfield. You don't have to then bring everyone else out, both teams, with the music playing from Field of Dreams and the whole thing. It was a little bit overboard. But I get it if you loved it. If you love the movie, like I love the movie, but it's, I guess, the difference between a Hollywood production and then a Major League Baseball production. I thought it was a little bit too Hollywood last night. You want to have all the Fox guys dress up in the old clothes and the whole thing. Okay, I'm cool with that. I get that. But I think it's just the constant music, playing of the slow piano with in my head, it goes back to kind of just mystical stuff, right? The Ray Liotta, is this heaven? No, it's Iowa kind of thing. Like that's the one of the great parts about the movie. It's kind of silly to keep harping on that. It got to a point where it was a little too much for me last night to keep harping on that for a Major League Baseball game. That's all. Cubs 4, Reds 2. As my Reds take over sole possession of last place in the NL Central, Troy says. Thank God football season's right around the corner. I hear you, Troy. And again, kudos to being a Reds fan. I do not feel bad for you because you're a Clemson fan. You got plenty of winning here recently. Now, if you're a Reds/Gamecock fan, then ultimate kudos. Then you add maybe the Cleveland Browns to your list. Then you get all the sympathy in the world. But things have a way of evening out, it seems. If you're a really good fan, eventually your time will come. We'll be interested to see how long this continues, how much of a tradition this continues to be. Don't know about the TV numbers, but I would imagine they were good enough for Fox to continue doing this with the way that television is these days. Live sporting events kind of trumping all. So I'm guessing plenty of people watch that thing. It's how do you differentiate from one year to the next, right? With a movie that obviously doesn't change, a place that doesn't change. That's part of the brilliance of baseball, right? The constancy and baseball every year, what you can count on. And unfortunately, that James Earl Jones speech turned out to not be true in 1995, just a few years after the movie came out with the lockout. You couldn't count on baseball because they wanted their money. They couldn't figure it out. So the fantasy of Field of Dreams is just that. How long can you continue to do that without it kind of becoming a little stale is interesting to me. And I've never been out there. Oh, wow, Craig's never even seen it? How can you never have seen Field of Dreams and be a sports fan? But you're not the first person to tell me they haven't seen a movie and for me to go, huh? I don't understand. How are you an American? How am I supposed to relate to you now? And I get it. If you've seen it and you didn't even like the movie, I can understand not loving that movie for sure. I'm a big fan. I put it at the top of the list. I got Major League as my second best baseball movie of all time, and it's almost 1A and 1B. It's just the comedy doesn't quite get there emotionally like the drama. All right, Troy's got the same reaction there. Thank you, and especially if you're going to be a Packers fan too, Troy. Right, you're not just a Packers fan. I believe you're a part owner, sir. Yeah, maybe that's the list we should come up with, right? Chris says, yeah, I had a lady tell me yesterday she hasn't seen Forrest Gump. What? What top 5 what movies that would make you react like that? Forrest Gump's on that list for sure. Field of Dreams for me. What else would I put up there? From a male standpoint ever, but probably not even in my generation. Godfather. The Godfather. Godfather 2. If you haven't seen 3, good for you. You haven't missed anything. Not a big movie watcher, Craig says. All right. But trying to figure out what I would equate that to. Like I'm not a big reality TV guy. I've seen Hard Knocks. I didn't see the most recent version, so maybe you can get me on that one. Yep. Craig says never seen The Godfather. All right, we got work to do with Craig. I'm guessing it would be, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones. Great polls there, Chris. Back to the Future especially. As much as it gets replayed on the networks these days. Excellent choices there, Chris. Those are on the top 5. What? You haven't seen it list? For sure. And that might say more about us making those lists than it does about anything else. Probably a generational thing. So Field of Dreams game last night. Other major news across all the sports. This was interesting because number 6 in basketball to me, who do you think of when you see the number 6 jersey? LeBron James currently? To me, it's Dr. J. Sorry, I wasn't patient enough to get your responses there on the live chat. To me, when I think number 6, I think Dr. J. I didn't get peak Dr. J. I didn't get ABA, the Virginia Squires, I think he played for. I got getting older Dr. J, and the 76ers still pretty relevant as Charles Barkley was coming up, being a young guy, missing the real early 80s when I think the 76ers won an NBA championship. I want to say 83, 84-ish. Still wasn't quite to NBA fandom by then. All right, Craig, now it's just getting embarrassing. You haven't seen Scarface either. We get it. Okay. Now you're just looking to get yelled at. We're not going to do it for you. Favorite movie of all time? Forrest Gump is second. Troy? Okay, so you're right there with me. I wouldn't put Field of Dreams as my favorite movie of all time. Favorite baseball movie, yes. And up there, probably top 10. Craig says, I hated Forrest Gump. Okay. All right. Let's not yell at each other about movies. It is Friday, but I get for a previous generation, Bill Russell would be the number 6, but now it's going to be every generation in basketball after a couple of years. Current guys wearing number 6, 25 of the 30 teams, I think, had a guy wearing number 6 last year. They're going to be able to continue wearing that thing, a lot like Mariano Rivera was allowed to wear 42 in Major League Baseball, but no one after these current guys. The NBA announcing they are retiring their first ever number. And Major League Baseball, I'm pretty positive, it's only Jackie Robinson. I like this idea. I'm guessing the NBA might end up doing it. Maybe not, because it would be a little too difficult from the personal foul. Keeping track of fouls. You know how Major League Baseball, they have it every year at basically Jackie Robinson Appreciation Day, and everybody wears the jersey number 42 on the back. Baseball, it's not that big a deal, right? I get it. You write down the numbers in the lineup, and it makes it much more difficult to keep track of who is where when everyone has the same number. But it's not quite the same as personal fouls in basketball, where the refs always flashing the number to the scores table over there. Put it up on the scoreboard, easy to keep track of everybody with fouls. And maybe in the NBA, they're familiar enough just to yell out the name, and it wouldn't be too confusing. Probably wouldn't. Just a 30-team league. They're familiar enough with each other. So maybe we'll see it in basketball someday. But it would be odd, right, to see everybody with the same basketball jersey number up and down the floor. But no one's going to be able to wear number 6 anymore in the NBA after these current guys who are kind of grandfathered in already. You've started wearing the number 6, they're going to let you in that tenure. I think that's a pretty cool deal. It's the ultimate honor, right? That number is yours. And if I was Dr. J, I might be a little ticked about that. I go, pretty good. That's my number. But I'm guessing he probably wore that number a lot like LeBron James wore number 23 to honor Michael Jordan. I'm guessing Dr. J probably got that from Bill Russell. So, interesting move, a dynamic move there by the NBA. And these guys are getting this not just because, well, you win 11 championships. Winning is enough, right? 11, again, so ridiculous for Bill Russell, and also had back-to-back NCAA titles in college. Olympic gold medal, the whole thing. Went on to be a coach. But the fact that he was the first African-American coach and means more to basketball, more to sports than just a good player for sure. It means progress and standing up for civil rights in a tumultuous time in the country for sure. Being a leader from that standpoint, Jackie Robinson breaking the barrier in Major League Baseball, more than just really good players and achieving an ultimate honor there. I think it's appropriate and probably should have been done a while ago instead of waiting until he passed away not too long ago. That's the part of the news in basketball. Did you guys see the SEC basketball news? I guess Kentucky's in the Bahamas right now. Basketball teams do this pretty consistently this time of year. Clemson, I think, just getting back from France. They might still be over there. Kentucky's down in the Bahamas on a preseason exhibition game tour that the NCAA does allow. And while down there, John Calipari trying to rally support, basically complaining that the practice facility at Kentucky, the basketball facilities in general, needed upgrade. And what? It's the university for Kentucky, he's calling it now. So why isn't state money being allocated to help? And man, I got all these players that he always talks about how many billions of dollars they've generated. I got these I can make some phone calls. We can raise money to get this practice facility. And while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and put a a history, a museum of Kentucky basketball, basically, an interactive type Hall of Fame almost. Why don't we get that going too? It's a basketball school. Alabama and Georgia, they're football schools. No offense to our football program, but we're a basketball school and we need to get this done. And that was the quote that was responded to within a couple of hours by Kentucky's football coach, Mark Stoops. And the response was a basketball school. Won 4 straight postseason games. What is happening? Yesterday was August 11th, 2022. Kentucky fans were siding with their football coach over their basketball coach in a tug of war publicly on social media between a couple of different programs at the University of Kentucky. Crazy. Mark Stoops also going on to retweet somebody else who pointed out, yeah, the basketball team hasn't won a postseason game in several years. And that the standard at Kentucky is, what kind of championship run you going on? How close are you to the national championship? That is not the standard for the football program, we all know. Mark Stoops is not that many games over 500 in his career. I think he went into last year like 1 game over 500. And I mean, just goes to show you the expectation level, the history of Kentucky football. I'm not trying to tell you that Mark Stoops isn't a good football coach. I think he is, but he hasn't had any championship teams at Kentucky. I don't see any coming anytime soon. And yet he's still gained enough to go at John Calipari yesterday on social media and have a Kentucky fan free-for-all amongst themselves. Troy, I've triggered Troy there. Clemson needs to stay in France. They can win over there. Even better idea, leave Brad Brownell over there. I can't imagine a more out of place situation. That sounds like a movie premise. Brad in France. Jason just evil laughing on Kentucky being a football school. Nobody's saying that. And good morning, Hope. Glad to have you in there. Happy Friday to you as well. Nobody believes Kentucky's a football school. Kentucky is a basketball school. This is that weird thing when people say things out loud in certain positions, there's blowback for whatever reason. It's that if you want to be critical of our country in 2022, that is one of the most legit ones there is. That calls out kind of corporate media, right? This so disingenuous. Of course Kentucky's a basketball school. Why can't their basketball coach say that? Of course Alabama's a football school and Georgia's a football school. Yes, everybody knows this. But when John Calipari says it, it becomes a story when Mark Stoops comes right back. I mean, what are you doing? I can only imagine. And maybe this is one of those situations when you're the Kentucky football coach where no press is bad press. In any kind of attention, you're just at that place. Maybe Mark Stoops was a little cantankerous coming off a bad practice or just a hot practice, being worn out, guys not doing what he wanted them to do. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe it was a great practice. Maybe he feels really good. Maybe he's buying the Will Levis first-round draft pick hype. He reads that thing, says, I'm going to shoot right back. I'm going to have some fun with Cal. Maybe they have that relationship. I don't know. I'm gonna mess with him. I'm going to mess with my buddy. I'm going to send him a text first and let him know what's going to happen. Say, hey, we're going to have some fun today. We're going to get your mentions up, big guy. Maybe that's what it was, right? I find it hard to believe that he didn't know what he was doing, and this was just some sort of emotional response. I think Mark Stoops is a little savvier than that, but I don't know. Bob Stoops certainly had his issue with media people through the years, and I think had and maybe still has a strange understanding of the dynamic there. If Mark Stoops thought he was going to do that and nobody was going to pay attention or make it a thing, then he's massively naive. So that happened. And then in response, give Bruce Pearl credit, man. He's one of the most PR savvy coaches that we've seen in college sports in decades. Bruce Pearl's towards the top of the list. I mean, look, everything he's survived, right? And he's still pretty well liked, I think, amongst the casual basketball fans out there. Even though he clearly cheated at Tennessee, got them in big trouble. Hey, he's had issues basically everywhere he's been with he's had some rules interpretation issues, might be the best way to put that, the most ridiculous way to put that. But I guess they were at, Bruce Pearl, and Auburn football coach Brian Harsin looked like they were at a golf event yesterday, so they took a picture and said, oh, we're a sports school at Auburn, or whatever they put out there, just to go right back at them. Good for them. August 11th, 2022, Kentucky fans going back and forth, Kentucky coaches going back and forth about what kind of school Kentucky is. Crazy, man. But we do see Kentucky pick second in the East this year. Over Tennessee, over Florida. I'd never, ever would have thought I'd see that coming. If you asked me that, how long do we have to go back? Only 15 years ago, maybe? Maybe 20 years ago. I mean, because you guys remember Tim Couch? About as good a college quarterback as there was. And it was a cute little story of Kentucky. Hey, maybe they won't get blown out this year. Completely blown out in all their games in the SEC anymore. But Florida, forget about it. What was that streak? They finally ended 20-some games, I believe it was. Kentucky and Florida. And then, Tennessee was on absolutely dominant. National champions back in the day, and year in, year out. And obviously, Kentucky has been a much better college football program than Tennessee in the last almost decade, right? I think we can probably say decade. That's something I never thought I would say for sure. And Gamecock fans know specifically, right? I think probably irks South Carolina fans maybe even more than Florida or Tennessee fans, because that's not anywhere close to the barometer of Florida and Tennessee football is Kentucky. Not even close. Nowhere on the radar. But it's always been real close to South Carolina, right? That's been that fourth spot that the Gamecocks could rely on through the years to be picked in the SEC East when it was just 6 teams. Always ahead of Vandy and Kentucky. Always behind Tennessee, Florida, and Georgia. Always ahead of those two. That was the spot for the longest time. Not that it made Gamecock fans happy, but there was a sense, I think, of satisfaction. Say, hey, at least we're not those two. And it better continue that way. And it has not continued that way for Gamecock football against Kentucky in pretty much the last decade. Certainly the last, 6 years in a row? Is that what it is? Crazy to say out loud. But interesting to see them go back and forth, and maybe a reminder of how smooth things are going right now for Gamecock football when it comes to that. The video example of that was the video put out by the social media team that I talked about right off the top of the show. The Here's Our Why, I think, is kind of how they entitled it, or how they put the social media, a big part of their why. I thought when I saw the headline, I thought it was going to be maybe some sort of real world type confessional where you just sit in front of the camera, kind of like I'm sitting right now, and maybe guys would go through, football players and coaches would go through and just give kind of a short summation of their why they're playing football I thought it might have been more of a family background type deal, because I think every football player and coach has something they can pull that would hit kind of emotionally with most of us, if that's done properly, right? And would probably surprise a lot of us, the depth that a lot of these guys would go to for why they grind at it every day, why they go through, why they're as dedicated and focused, and how much they've sacrificed, why all of that is done. But this one was much simpler, right? And I think much more effective, probably, in a public messaging standpoint. Why must you play hard every single snap, every single game? Because fans paid to see you play. They sacrifice a lot too. Very simple concept, very easy to say. And college football coaches have said it from the beginning, probably, of people coming out and watching them play. Oh, great fans. We really love our fans. Every SEC school says, oh, you got the best fans in the country. Will Muschamp said that verbatim. Steve Spurrier has said that pretty much. Like, oh, yes, South Carolina fans as good as any other fans. That does the opposite of what this video did for a fan base. It has the complete opposite effect of, oh, okay, thanks. Right? When you hear that from a legendary coach, you get it. You can stomach it, I think. Same with Lou Holtz. And Holtz was a little different, right? He would do a magic trick or do his all shucks routine and still, I think, connect or at least stand out amongst college football coaches from a comment standpoint, a personality standpoint. Steve Spurrier certainly stood out from a personality standpoint, but not necessarily in a great way, typically. Will Muschamp, the exact opposite. He stood out for nearly only negative reasons. And one of those, especially towards the end, that was blatantly obvious, was the inability to connect with your fan base, which he stole directly, like most things in his head coaching perspective, from the best head coach in college football to ever do it, Nick Saban. And what he and Jeremy Pruitt and other Saban assistants either didn't realize or didn't care or didn't have the foresight or maybe even the tools, the personality, I don't know what it was, to navigate around, was that you can only approach your program that way or design your program that way and be successful at doing it if you are also very successful from a wins and losses standpoint, consistently. It's a difficult, it's not a smart design, let's put it that way. Craig says that video was powerful. Craig, can you explain why it was powerful to you? I'll restate it again. Like, I don't know how Shane Beamer does it. I don't. And I think this is part of how it's difficult to explain, especially if you were to do it to someone who has not been around South Carolina football very much and maybe not even been around Shane Beamer very much. It's very difficult to explain the unique impact he and his personality and the way he comes across has to Gamecock fans. It's impressive because Shane Beamer somehow can identify, and he came across in the video to his players as someone who very much recognizes and identifies with the casual fan who pays for parking at Rosewood, walks all the way a mile to the stadium-ish, fights the traffic, dedicates all of that, pays to sit up after walking up the ramp all the way in the nosebleed in the upper east or the upper west section at Williams-Brice Stadium. And that is so many Gamecock fans. I mean, that to a T. Like, I don't know. Maybe Shane is just that good, I would imagine, I think this is his unique ability at talking to people and then not just relating to them where they are with him, but almost immediately understanding their perspective or identifying with that. Because, like I said, that's not him at all. He's the exact opposite of that. And I think most college football coaches are. A lot of them, most of them, Will Muschamp, Mike Bobo, go down the list. A lot of them grow up sons of coaches. I guess Steve Spurrier a little different in that regard, but a son of a minister, so certainly a son of a leader, right? That's just your environment growing up. That is part of the grooming process for a leader, is being able to have a guide there. It's got to make it easier, right? And then if you're specifically the son of a football coach, then you see exactly how it's done. Shane Beamer has done that his entire life. Son of Hall of Fame Coach Frank Beamer. He hasn't had the experience of just being the casual fan. Maybe he has talked to enough of them. Maybe he grew up seeing that interaction with his dad or his family. Maybe that's the interaction he had going to school with other people, hearing it so much. But that's the thing, Craig. It doesn't come across as calculated. Like when I hear calculated, Craig writes in, everything Beamer does is so calculated and well thought out, he just gets it. Like when I hear calculated, man, it has a negative connotation. It has a what, I'm going to do something to get something. It has a transactional feel. And I definitely felt that from other coaches. Like 95% of coaches during these press conferences, the thousands that I've sat through in my life, they have their opening statement, right? The other team's well coached and we're good players, and we're really looking forward to the challenge and can't wait for our fans to get out and have their support, and they're the best in the country. And rote, right? That is just the routine. That is what you got to say. That is how coaches speak publicly, politically correctly. And that is calculated and well thought out, right? Or maybe just thought out. It was probably well thought out at one point in college football history when press conferences probably started. But then that's just kind of how you do it, right? That's how most college football coaches have always done it. Morning into you, York, talking about the newest Gamecock football video. And just in case you haven't seen it, or even if you have, just for clarity's sake, here's how I saw it. Shane Beamer in a team meeting gives some props to Brad Johnson for a happy birthday, and then says, hey, guys, we're going on a walk. Get downstairs. It's going to be quick. So everybody gathers, and this is, the entire 120 player, 100 and I don't know if I did see assistant coaches there. I don't think I did, actually, now that I think about the video and them showing players sitting. But I think it was maybe just Beamer and the players, probably a couple other staff members, though. So they all get up, they walk down the brick walk, just like they would do for the Gamecock pregame walk, the Gamecock walk over to Williams-Brice Stadium. But here's the difference is they hit the ramp. They go right up the upper east stands, I believe. And he has them sit right there, and he addresses the team and says, this is a big part of our why, that people pay to do that walk you just did. Long walk, right? Not necessarily an easy walk. To sit right here and to watch you play. and to park way over there, and from up there you can see a lot of Columbia. And he pointed out old Rosewood, York, exactly. He says, great video, been making the trek for more than 40 years now, can't wait. And so many people have. And him expressing it physically and verbally, right? Taking them there, sitting them in those stands, doing this was absolutely calculated and well thought out, like you're talking about, Craig. And yet, how Beamer addressed how he related to his team and what, not only what he was saying, but how he said it. It's impossible, I think, it's impossible for me to think anything other than, oh man, he does get it. Why doesn't, what the thought that I had while I was watching is, why is this the first time I'm seeing this from a head college football coach? Why doesn't every coach do this? Doesn't seem that difficult, right? Couldn't have taken that long. But I think why is that most coaches aren't as aware in this way as Shane Beamer is. I think that's the only best way I know how to put it. Hope says it was the Upper West stands. Used to climb those ramps to the Upper West for years. Does that mean you've gone big time, Hope? Move your tickets down? I mean, now you go in the elevator or hit up the zone escalator? Is that what? I guess. But just another example of home run, bullseye. Hope says an absolute on the mark, getting the result you were looking for, and then some. The reaction I think you're looking for, the appeal, the connection continues to strengthen. And again, you do have to back it up on the field, and you gotta absolutely get results and win football games. But these are other examples of how you can ingratiate yourself to a fan base. Interesting. Vol fans jumped on Twitter to imply Shane Beamer got it from Phil Fulmer. He's one of the guys. He's one of the influences for sure. And Fulmer did have a way about him, I think, of connecting with Tennessee fans for sure, coming off as kind of an all shucks kind of guy. Craig says, clearly there were divisions or cliques during the Will Muschamp era. This is all team building and getting everyone pulling together. It was needed in this program. Yeah, but I think it would be overstating things to say that there aren't groups of guys, right? There aren't some, but certainly not to the level, and you're dead on, Craig. Coaches, players, and fans were divided. And I think it's more coaches and players, I think you could put them in one category, and then fans were divided. It was a massive divide, right? And there's always going to be a divide. I always say this too, and I'm certainly not the first to say this. There is inside the locker room and there is outside the locker room. We've seen examples of this. Typically, examples that you got to point out because it's not a great situation. Hope says, everyone is finding some joy now. Maybe that has a lot to do with it, right? But there was a Carolina versus all y'all shirt that popped up at the end of the Chad Holbrook era because at that point, the noise had gotten so loud, I think from the Carolina baseball program standpoint, that they didn't feel they were being supported by Gamecock fans. They thought at the time, I believe, and I mean, I have good reason to believe this, that it was really them against the world, including their own fans, who would give them a bunch of criticism in their own home park when things weren't going well. I think Gamecock football fans are pretty fantastic by and large. Gamecock baseball fans, I wouldn't quite put up that high, right? From a supportive standpoint. And plenty of boos at Williams-Brice, but it's different when you boo in an 80,000 seat stadium and it's football versus yelling at your own team in baseball in a 7,000 seat stadium at a baseball game where it's very easy to hear and to get your message across. Steven says Shane definitely separated himself from the Muschamp era, I think he means. He actually cares about the fans. And you got to care about the fans. It's a job requirement when you're a football coach. But it's how you show that, right? And then what level. And absolutely agreed. I can't defend it at all. I can't think of one example. I did go into Will Muschamp's office one time as a radio guy and got to bring a couple of area kids with me. Or maybe it was just one area kid with me who had been battling cancer at the time. Unfortunately, has continued to battle it and beat it, I believe. But you got to ask Will Muschamp some questions and sit down, do a radio thing. And so that was caring about fans to some degree, right? It's the one example I can give you. But other than that, there aren't many examples out there, at least that we know about. Maybe there are some under the radar and out of the public eye. But the division and this massive division that most football coaches put up, right, because of secrecy. I don't know how else to put it, right? They don't want their information. They think it's so valuable. Their information, their plays, their philosophies. They think that's so valuable, I think, that they don't want anybody else to know it. I don't know how else to put it, but it's dumb when I even say it out loud, right? Because football coaches are the most, I don't know, notorious is not the right word, but they have the reputation for being pretty open and honest with their coaching techniques in a coaching fraternity, right? They have these clinics all the time. And you don't just keep all your stuff private. If one program that you admire is doing something specifically that you admire, these coaching staffs go and visit those programs, right? And it's usually different levels. It's like NFL teams will go to college teams, or college teams will go visit NFL organizations. Maybe we've seen examples of those coaches, either pro or college, going to high school coaches now to get information, to get more of the details, to get kind of coached up by what they're doing, to talk ball, basically. And good morning to you, Roger. We'll allow you. We'll give you a pass for being late to the game today. So just to let Roger into the conversation, talking about the Gamecock social media video released yesterday, Shane Beamer taking his team up to the upper stands at Williams-Brice Stadium, saying this is a big part of our why, doing it for the fans who sacrifice a bunch to be here to watch you play, to pay money to watch you play. And this is where I've never understood those fans who do that. I think the main reason some of those fans begrudge the idea of players making money is because there's something that they feel good about in that sacrifice, of that financial sacrifice, that those players they can watch those guys play their guts out for simply the love of the game. And there's something maybe like philanthropic about that, or self-sacrificial. Maybe it's an equal sacrifice for a lot in a lot of fans' minds, right? I'm willing to sacrifice going in game day traffic, paying for parking, paying for tickets, paying ridiculous prices for concessions, because I see the sacrifice in front of me. And I know these guys are sacrificing even more. But to me, it's always you're worth what you're worth, right? I admire the sacrifice for sure, but I think it's a naive way to think that they're only doing it for the love of the game, or that trumps all, and then that's all they should get in return is a firm handshake or praise from their coaches, or if they play really well, the chance to go make a bunch of money in the NFL when everything that's being built up around them has been earned by that product and attracting you to the game and the whole thing. The heat Roger comes in with, acknowledging that all those fans will be in the stands noon on September 17th watching Carolina play against Georgia. September 17th in Columbia, South Carolina. And just to acknowledge the sacrifice that the fans make. It seems so easy, so simple, and yet never seen anybody execute this like the Gamecock football program did yesterday. Not trying to harp on it, but am trying to kind of fully explain it or use it as an example, as the latest example, and one of the best ones of how Shane Beamer has a really good handle on his job and role as the head coach of a major college football program in 2022. It's different than it's ever been in so many ways. And maybe it has helped, actually, that he's come to it for the first time in this era, just last year, where it's not an option, right? Kirk Ferentz can think of it. He's 67 years old. He's been doing it forever. He can think of it like, it's not what it used to be. I don't like it. Dan Mullen has coached a long time, right? Say, I don't like what I see coming here. It's not headed in a good direction. I am not going to adjust. I don't have to like it. I got other options. I'll go sit on the beach with my millions of dollars. I can go to the NFL, I think he was thinking in his head. And Craig, this is a great point. And again, what I don't understand, maybe it's that competitor's mindset, like maybe it's the Derek Jeter mindset. And finished watching The Captain last night. Recommend it highly. Episode, the entire ending was a little bit of a letdown. It was episode 7. There's 7 episodes, I guess. But especially if you are interested, and I think all of us are to some degree, because Jeter never let anybody in, which I respect massively, into kind of his private life, but did especially in this final episode. But his mindset is very clear in the Captain series of completely unacceptable to even allow the thought of not competing at your hardest every single time out there, to giving everything you got to win, period. And so maybe that's why college coaches, Craig, don't also understand this or aren't prepared for this or don't factor this in. He says you also put yourself in a much better position with the fans if you go 6-6 the next couple of years. If the recruiting stays on track and fans still believe, you're less likely to be quickly on the hot seat. And that's such a major point. Roger agrees. It's a major point in college football in 2022, especially with these recent examples, right? These Nick Saban disciples who come in and say, basically, we're going to do things how Saban does because he's the best college football coach in history. I know exactly what he does. That's what we're going to do here. Stamp, carbon copy, press and play, plug and play, and it doesn't work. Unless you're Kirby Smart at Georgia. Didn't work for Will Muschamp in South Carolina. It didn't work for Jeremy Pruitt at Alabama. Lane Kiffin's smart enough to know that's certainly not how he can be most successful, even though he did coach with Nick Saban. But certainly that wasn't where he made his reputation. Maybe a little bit different from the other guys. He's truly grateful, Chris says, to be the coach at South Carolina. He's trying to get the players to understand how much of a great opportunity they have. The first part, completely agree with. I mean, but don't you think Will Muschamp was truly grateful to have another shot at it in the SEC East? I think he was. But we never felt that, right? And he never expressed that. I think that's a part of the emotional IQ, the social IQ that didn't hit for sure. And that's the main difference that we continue to see in these era. Yeah, in this switch of eras, right? And Chris says he was just grateful to have a job, and you're right. That's definitely how it felt. That the job was the main thing, not this job, and that is a massive difference with Shane Beamer. That he didn't want a head coaching job; he wanted this head coaching job at the University of South Carolina. And that's the thing you got to sell in recruiting. And that's why I could never quite figure out how could Will Muschamp be such a good recruiter? How could he speak to players, to prospects, to their families in a way that convinced them and then not be able to relate that to do something similar to the fan base? And I think that's maybe because he never understood or valued that part of being a head coach. Yeah, Chris says Beamer's grateful to be at Carolina itself specifically. And again, that's what I saw in that video. That's what I think is impossible not to see in that video, no matter where you're coming at it from. Clemson fans can't watch that video and not say, hey, man, I get it. I mean, I guess you could. But I don't think you can honestly say, me as a human being, I don't understand how you could ever be a fan of that coach. And that's what the disingenuous part of the other side of it, the Gamecock side of the criticism of Dabo Swinney and the Clemson program has been in the last decade or so. That's what I can't identify with. Like, I remember at the time thinking Dabo Swinney's a really good fit personality-wise, a much better Clemson personality fit than Tommy Bowden was. It just seems like a Clemson kind of guy. He seems like he can relate to the Clemson fan base a lot more than Tommy Bowden. And Bowden's a great example, right? Shane Beamer is Tommy Bowden in a lot of ways. Growing up, the son of a Hall of Fame college football coach, watching that coach as a child fight to get to major college football legendary status and everything you had to overcome to get there. But Murray State is where Frank Beamer coached. It was Samford where Bobby Bowden coached, where Tommy Bowden saw that. It wasn't instant success at Virginia Tech for Frank Beamer. It wasn't instant success for Bobby Bowden at Florida State. Maybe it was West Virginia in between. It was Samford, West Virginia, Florida State. I think might have been how it went for Bowden. And I think that's where Tommy Bowden would always retell the story of his dad being kind of hung in effigy, a dummy of his dad. Great story from Shane Beamer getting his driver's license and the DMV employee holding on to it when he went to grab it and said, your dad better win more games. These are unique experiences that most of us don't go through, and thank God we don't, right? That is a weight on the shoulders of sons that most of us don't have to bear. It's a unique place, right? And give Shane credit, too. He also mentions the advantages that he had, that his kids have of growing up that way. And I think that's, unfortunately, just how we view those situations most of the time, only the positive. Say, oh, these guys, they had lots of money, they had lots of advantages, woe is me kind of thing. But Tommy Bowden is a great example, and I think probably the typical one of not being able to relate to the common fan. You just couldn't do it. And maybe it is it goes into that background too. If Tommy Bowden was always thought to be a really bright offensive mind, some Clemson fans might completely disagree, but I think that's how he made his reputation in football, right? On the offensive side of the ball, calling a bunch of good ball plays down at Tulane in an undefeated season, helped get him the Clemson job, but never was endearing to Clemson fans. And Shane Beamer, this has been fascinating to watch because it's been a process. I think Shane's perception for most Gamecock fans, or certainly from where I'm sitting, is hey, he's a likable guy as an assistant coach. Glad to have that guy, man. He's doing a good job recruiting. He definitely has to know what he's talking about in special teams. He blocked a few punts and did some things. Good for him. He's a pretty good football coach. He's a pretty good assistant football coach. Good to have. And then after he left and the recruiting operation did not continue consistently year after year to be at the same level, a lot of people said, man, Shane Beamer was actually a really good recruiting coordinator at Carolina, something that Steve Spurrier Jr. could not continue at near the same level for as long as he did anyway, and said, Beamer deserves a ton of credit. But then the job pops open after Steve Spurrier, and his name does pop in the mix, and you say, I don't think so. He's too young, never been a coordinator. You're going to go from one of the best coaches in college football history to a guy who's never coached and has Hall of Fame legendary status to live up to, and his dad? Yeah, I don't see that. And this guy's just in Georgia, right? And wanted Kirby Smart to begin with. Not Kirby Smart's assistant coach who coaches he coaches tight ends there too, I think. Maybe special teams. That's not good enough. Let's go for guys who've been there, done that before, more proven. Rich Rodriguez type. I definitely want the new shiny guy there. Was winning at Houston at the time. Tom Herman. Oh, he's not coming. Oh boy, and then it kind of fell apart, right? And then Will Muschamp pops out of near nowhere after 1 year being a coordinator at Auburn, and then you can kind of see why you would hire Will Muschamp at that point over Shane Beamer. Beamer's 45 now, I think, right? Maybe just newly 45. I think he's a few months older than I am. So he would have been 39 at the time, maybe 40. Would have been a big, big gamble. It was not that it wasn't a big gamble to hire Will Muschamp, but less of a gamble because of the proven SEC defensive prowess, proven national college football defensive prowess as a coordinator, and then proven SEC recruiting at a high, high level, and bringing in the staff with him that could presumably continue to do that like they did at Florida. You can criticize a lot of what happened with Will Muschamp at Florida, but you can't criticize the recruiting. Recruiting was really good. And so that's why I guess I can see at the time the hire. I think that leaves out a bunch of the baggage and also missed the chance at hitting a home run with a guy who comes along with a lot of intangibles. Roger says the fact that he likes being at this particular job in Columbia, South Carolina comes through in a lot of ways, verbal as well as nonverbal. But think about it. Had he taken over for Steve Spurrier, I think it would have very much come off as cheerleader type stuff, the type of personality and the type of criticism that Dabo Swinney got from Gamecock fans mostly. It would have been dead on for Shane Beamer at that time. And then, again, you don't get a buffer. You don't get what you gotten in the last 5 years where Carolina struggled. You don't have that time period for Gamecock fans to kind of reappreciate respectability as opposed to expecting near dominance, top 10 type seasons. So I don't think you would be able to relate quite like he has been able to relate, or the connection just wouldn't have been quite the same. But again, we got to understand what everything that happened in year number one to get us where we are right now on August 12th, 2022. You don't put out a video like this after Tennessee absolutely demolishes you with their first-year head coach. I mentioned that Florida game, how massive it was last year, coming off a bye week after getting trounced by Texas A&M, having 0 significant wins and struggling outside of an easy win against Eastern Illinois, which one of the worst teams that South Carolina's maybe ever played, struggling to win at East Carolina, struggling at home to beat Troy. But massive change when you pound a Florida team that was ranked 20th in the country at the time and was, I think, a 19-point favorite going in. Then you add an Auburn win to that. But again, still question marks. And I think the overriding sentiment is pretty good first year. Got to figure, you got to do something with the offensive coordinator. Got to do, the offense is just bad, not good. And North Carolina's got a really good quarterback, and they were a preseason top 10 team. And this does not set up well in Charlotte for Shane Beamer and company. That's cute that Shane's willing to get a tub of mayonnaise dumped on his head afterwards, but this is probably not going to go well, and it was the opposite of that. And so this entire journey has led us to where we sit today, and I think has allowed Shane Beamer to only continue to strengthen and to really play on his strengths as well, being able to do that and being seen as a guy as opposed to someone who doesn't have enough X's and O's expertise or no coordinator experience, and those things dragging the reputation down. It's that you can certainly ignore that or understand the value of coming at the job how he's come at it and realizing that, hey, you hire people to do those kind of things. You let them do their job. You got to make good hires and be a great evaluator. And you certainly have some massive influence, but that's your role as a head coach. And then you have to do things like that video, which is the exact opposite, really, of the video that also got so much great feedback, but being lighthearted, right? And just having fun and basically relating to the 16 and 17-year-old recruit out there. That music video on the way to SEC Media Day. 25 seconds, I think that thing was. This one was a 3-minute, if we're going like a movie version, right? That was an action film or a buddy comedy type deal, maybe an action buddy comedy type deal. The short video on the way to Atlanta in SEC Media Days. This one was a drama. This was a 3+ minute video that hit deep, if you will, and connected on that level. Another parallel with Dabo, he'd also never been a coordinator. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Roger. There's so many parallels, and Gamecock fans might not want to admit it, but it's absolutely what it is. So notable in so many ways, man. And especially at this point where Gamecock defensive players did talk yesterday, not a lot of news from R.J. Roderick or Tyshawn Wanamaker. Several other guys speaking yesterday. But no news, again, continues to be good news this time in college football for sure. In football in general, the major Bucks camp is going to be out for, I think I saw like 10 days, something like that. But this, and Todd Bowles doesn't seem well equipped to handle this, or didn't seem like, he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to be back, or I'm pretty sure this is what's going to happen, and he's handling personal stuff, and I don't get how it's being handled. Just come out and say Tom Brady's different, man. And I get maybe you're sending a bad message out there if this was a college football head coach or something, where everybody's got to be treated the same, and you got to make sure that the last person on the roster, that's another Shane Beamer line, right? They don't separate the locker room, that walk-ons are treated just like scholarship guys. Well, that makes sense. I get it. But you could not be an NFL guy and say, yeah, the last guy on our roster is treated no differently than Tom Brady. Well, then you're just dumb. It's just ridiculous. And Troy, the resident Clemson fan, for sure, Shane reminds me of Dabo in many ways. And if you're a Gamecock fan, I think you should take that as an absolute compliment. I get it that a lot of Gamecock fans cannot, just with sheer blind hatred for the rival. And I can respect that. Part of what makes it fun, right? But I think the more reasoned, more rational fans out there who have watched Clemson's run and said, maybe to themselves and not admitted it to other Clemson fans. Oh, so jealous of that. That's where I thought we were headed with that 5-year win streak in the rivalry. How did they end up there? That was supposed to be us. And, that's what you get when you play an easy ACC schedule. And why can't that be South Carolina, right? That's when that Spurrier line kind of comes back. Why not us? Why not? Why that one? How did that happen? How is that guy doing that? I think that's probably where a lot of South Carolina fans came from. You got to give him credit. He did it being him. And Shane, that's another part of this Shane Beamer evolution we're seeing. Another part that deserves a ton of credit. I think a lot like Sam Pittman at Arkansas. These guys are being themselves. I think it's a lot easier for Sam Pittman at his age. It's almost more like hey, I got nothing to lose. Play with house money here. But it's authentic. That's who he is. He's different. He's not afraid to be different. Sam Pittman I'm talking about specifically there, but then Jay Beamer too in a much maybe more understated kind of way. Really appreciate you guys chiming in on the live chat there. Craig says, I like seeing the other side of Beamer too, going off after the Georgia game about all the 5 stars. Fans need to see that side too. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And that's that's the part that I always thought was undersold or ignored with Dabo Swinney as well. Like if you think he's just a cheerleader and pumping up his guys all the time and doesn't have the other side of him that you have to have in college football, the disciplinarian side, like what pops that in my mind, yeah, Craig's saying he's uber competitive. Exactly, correct. He's talking about Shane Beamer, I think, there. But as was and is Dabo Swinney, you have to be as a coach in major college sports. And just to write someone off as a cheerleader and think that you're getting lucky or you're just taking advantage of a weaker conference, that's completely naive, right? But that's the personality that I think attracts so many players to Clemson, is all the energy and enthusiasm that Dabo Swinney shows, and then that balances out all of that other stuff that goes into it, right? All the discipline you have to have, the demanding nature that is major college football, especially. But when you can have fun when you win, and Dabo does it in his own unique way that I think does identify with his players and is easy to criticize from the outside for sure, and can kind of wear thin, or that that motivation that he plays as well, little old Clemson and all that stuff, that I think that is a lack of awareness from the outside, how that's being perceived in a lot of ways, or maybe he just doesn't care. It's absolutely a balancing act a coach has to have. And again, on the inside, there's inside the locker room and there's outside the locker room. And there's really no in between, right? You're either in or you're out. And on the inside, I think Will Muschamp was able to connect with his players in that way mostly. Again, we saw guys just quit when he got fired. You don't do that if you don't have some loyalty, respect, connection, whatever, however you want to say it, to that coach. So clearly that was there inside the locker room. And clearly Shane Beamer has hit inside the locker room as well, being able to win 7 games. Dabo Swinney obviously has that locker room. And taking it to a ridiculously high level that just wasn't quite live up to again. And then that's where you get to the outside the locker room part, right? Inside the locker room, you can complain about how ridiculous it is for your fans to be upset that you lost 3 games, knowing that you still won double-digit games. In the locker room, that's fine. Outside the locker room, in front of a podium or a microphone, I guess you would be behind the podium, right? It'd be weird if you were in front of the podium with the back to everybody else talking on the microphone. That'd be one way to do it. It'd be the Catholic Latin way to do it. Behind the podium, in front of a microphone, when you say that, it can come off a lot differently, especially in August and ACC media days like Dabo was doing. And yeah, players and coaches can feel bad for themselves that way, or like you get sympathy from guys who are just pouring their guts out day in and day out from that standpoint, and they get it, right? But you don't get much sympathy from the people that Shane Beamer was talking about who pay to park and walk up and pay to watch them play and have come to expect, and rightly so, because it's just happened year in and year out, absolute domination from an ACC standpoint that you didn't see last year. And so that's where I think what we've seen is that there can be a bit of a disconnect there with Dabo Swinney's public persona. And we haven't seen that at all with Shane Beamer's. And Craig, that's a great point. While watching that, while that went all across the country, I don't know what we can say that made that so interesting. Exasperation? Was it a coach admitting that his team was outmatched? That the other team was so good? And like being frustrated that it wasn't obvious to everyone? I'm not sure what that was. But it didn't tick off Gamecock fans, right? Because typically, if you were to see a coach say that, like when Will Muschamp would say, no, we're a 2-win team, or we're a 3-win team, I guess it was, 4-win team, whatever that bad season was that he had to pick up the pieces from. I think it was 4-8 back in 2015, right? We're a 4-win team. We're all what our record says. You didn't hear that much from Shane Beamer last year. Oh, we're a 2-win program. Because in that way, you're almost setting up excuses. We are what our record says we are, and blah, 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 those old cliches. You didn't get much of that from Shane Beamer. And you didn't get this before the game, right? You got this in frustration after the game because of, I think, in a large part, seeing the dominance on display against you, losing and being that competitive and not being happy about it. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was that was what was coming through. Like, I hated that with the core of my being, hated watching that. But I also have to respect it because they're just that good. Maybe it was some sort of that was the sentiment that we all kind of took in somehow. I don't know. But you're right. You gotta have that for the other stuff to work. And that's what we continue to see in Gamecock football, which had an alum in the end zone last night, actually 2 guys, but one in his NFL debut of sorts, an exhibition play anyway. Kevin Harris scoring a touchdown for the New England Patriots. Mike Davis scored one, I believe, for the Baltimore Ravens as well, had a pretty good game. Stats-wise, Harris' stats were not impressive, single digits in rushing yards, I think, 6 carries, 9 yards, something like that. Had a catch for -2 yards. Giants ended up beating the Patriots in that one last night. The Major League Baseball Field of Dreams game last night as well, which I don't know how I'm taking this thing. I get it. There are a lot of people seemingly loved it on social media. And I'm not saying that I didn't like it, but I like it. I don't love it. Let's put it that way. I like it. I don't love it. And I think it should be done. It's a great novelty. Whoever had the idea, brilliant. Another way to be kind of in the news in sports in August, especially this time where it's easy for non-baseball nuts to be distracted or for their attention to be taken away by storylines and preseason camps. Tom Brady out at Bucs camp, the football storylines this time of year, and especially since we're not down the stretch for pennant races or wild card races. Those aren't quite maybe even what they used to be with more postseason spots available. There's been a lot of baseball played. There's still a lot of baseball to be played. So in August, to be notable about a month after the All-Star games in a good spot as well, it's a nice novelty. But for someone who loves the movie Field of Dreams, just to continue to see the reenactments or trying to make it real life kind of thing, like that's part of what's great about the movie is that it's kind of fantasy. To me, that's what's great about a lot of movies. I'm not a big sci-fi guy, but I can get there to some extent. Like that was the thing with what was the show? Game of Thrones. When it got to the dragons part, I was always like, huh? What's happening? I thought this was like knights versus kings and family drama and the whole thing. And now we got this. The Night Walkers, the White Walkers, or all right. This is kind of weird. This is what kind of took me out of it. The Field of Dream stuff, though, I went kind of the other way. Like that's part of the draw. And there's this heaven. No, it's Iowa kind of thing. I connected with the baseball and then the other kind of otherworldly stuff as opposed to some other science fiction stuff that I can't quite get on board with. But that's what I don't feel like hits home if you're reenacting it or doing it in an over-the-top way. Like I get it. The Ken Griffey Jr. and the Ken Griffey thing, I like what they tried to do there. I thought it was hilarious that Ken Griffey Jr. tosses the ball to Griffey Sr. and he doesn't even catch it. He dropped it. I'm hoping maybe the sun was in his eyes. But that to me is the epitome of, I guess, how I take in what I saw last night. That baseball on its own is such a special thing and can be so emotional in so many ways. Like I just think of the last couple of games the Braves played, man. Ronald Acuna, the electricity of him flying around the bases, making that ridiculous slide to score the 9th run in the 11th inning, the Braves winning in baseball's most historic venue. The next night, they call up a dude from Double-A. He's 21 years old. Doesn't look great in his first couple at-bats. First major league hit, smashes it over the monster. Bat flip, looked like he's been doing it his whole life. Was just right. The bat flip was perfect. A perfect balance of celebratory and what you should be feeling as a 21-year-old who just got your first major league hit in the most historic baseball venue ever, and then not being all about you and showing up the other team. Perfect. Like, those are things that you can't script, or if you do, it feels goofy at a movie. So that was part of the last episode of the comeback last night with Derek Jeter getting a walk-off hit in his final at-bat at Yankee Stadium. I mean, come on, man. It's crazy. That's what baseball is at its finest. And so you don't have to bring in too much more to get me connected with baseball in that way. And maybe I'm a little different. Maybe a casual fan does need more. I just saw it as a little bit too much last night, a little overproduced, if you will. That movie, Roger says, also helped bring much attention to Shoeless Joe. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that, right? Griffey Sr. was a big part of the Big Red Machine. That was special, Troy said. Yeah, no doubt. And I that was, again, a little bit before my time, but I got the Griffey Jr. at the end of his career, and it was awesome. I got to see them in Seattle the year they played together, Griffey Jr. and Griffey Sr. So cool. So, Craig, back on the Georgia rant, it was more like, wasn't it obvious they were the varsity and we were the JV? Do you people have eyes? But then Shane at the end apologized to the reporter who asked the question. Muschamp never would have done that. And what's the 5 for 5 there, Craig? Help me out with that. So the Field of Dreams game, liked it, didn't love it. I don't know if I'll even watch next year. I didn't watch last year, was the first one I think it happened, and I felt like I missed something. I heard great things. I'm not sure how you can continue to make that unique. Yes, bringing in other players would be good, and especially if you brought in, I think all you got to do, it's really simple to me, and maybe this is why you don't have to get me too much with baseball. And I've found similar connections. Like, it's a kid's game that most dads teach them and relate to them through. Like, and that is a big part of my connection to the game. My dad took me and my family to baseball venues, Major League Baseball parks during summers, several years in a row, big family trips, man. Taught me how to keep score. We kept score. I mean, it was a big part of our relationship. I'll take it another step further. My mom's dad was a big baseball guy, played baseball growing up. Met the great Connie Mack as a player. Oh, big Braves fan as well. That was a lot of our relationship too. So to me, like that's what baseball, I'm instantly connected, man. You don't have to make it more. You don't have to Hollywood it up too much for me to connect to. Maybe that's why I really love the movie Field of Dreams, is that father-son thing. Oh, Jeter in his last game. Thanks, Greg. 5 for 5. And junior and senior homered in the same game for Seattle back in 1990. Troy's dropping us knowledge. Yeah, something I don't think you'll ever see again. Incredible, right? I mean, just that alone, right? That is so much cooler and so much more preposterous than the idea of what we saw last night, a son and dad walking through a cornfield and then coming out and having a catch, right? Which was, I mean, and again, in the movie, loved it. When it's produced later on in conjunction with a kind of a tribute game at basically on a movie set, right? Or a field that was built around a movie set. It didn't nearly hit like it should for me. Chris says, I never was a big baseball fan, but my son is loving it, going to be trying out for JV in a couple of weeks. Good for him, Chris. It's a great game, man. That's the thing. Like, if I think if Major League Baseball were to just go every single year to Field of Dreams and fly in, have every team that's there, rotate the teams that go through there, right? So you get different guys. Have those guys' dads, those players' dads, or if players are old enough where they have their own sons, you just tell those stories. You're good to go, man. I mean, we've seen it several times in the home run derby, right? A dad throwing to his kid in a home run derby. Who was the last one? I think it was Corey Seager, maybe his dad threw most recently to him here. That is amazing. And maybe it's just because I got the 7 and 9-year-old right now, and I'm always throwing to them, so I connect with it really easily. So to me, that is the amazing part, the main pull of Field of Dreams. It was that storyline plus the shoeless Joe Jackson deal that made that movie so special, the way it was done, for sure, but which makes this whole thing possible. And we'll be fascinated to see if they continue to do it. I'm glad they've done it. Like it, don't love it. And I can't even get to a top 5 baseball movies, by the way. I tried to think of it in my head. I wrote it down. I just got to 2, and then I added another one on there kind of out of obligation, I felt. I do have, I guess I could add a 4th one now. And then I think there's a show coming out. We recently had it on within the family, the League of Their Own. Pretty good movie, man. So I think I might put that 4th. I got Field of Dreams, number 1. Major League, number 2. Those far and away. Those are kind of in my top 10 all-time movies. And then it falls off. The list falls off for me. I feel like out of obligation almost, I got to put Bull Durham in there. But I wasn't a massive fan. Like it, respect it, got it. I know a lot of people love it. Then League of Their Own is pretty good. Rookie of the Year, played that one for the kids recently. They love it. It's a good one. But not near in the same category. So I'm more of a top 2 baseball movie kind of guy. You want to go Bad News Bears back in the day? Okay, I can respect it. Didn't love it. Liked it, didn't love it. Sandlot, okay, now that would probably be number 5 for me. Probably got to go Field of Dreams, Major League, Bull Durham, League of Their Own, The Sandlot. If you make me write out my top 5 baseball movies. But Field of Dreams game last night got me thinking about that a little bit. Again, all this conversation today, and I didn't even realize we'd go this far in depth about Shane Beamer and company, or Shane Beamer, the video, and then the impact that he's had, the evolution that we've seen here in a year and a half. But you look over at Kentucky, and man, that's different, huh? You got at South Carolina, you got Lamont Paris, all smiles these days, even though there was another injury announcement yesterday. He's a walk-on, I think. Troy Boykin, his name out for the season as well, injured after the Achilles was torn by the Coastal Carolina transfer guard, Deba, the day before. So not great news there, but coming off the G.G. Jackson news, coming off signing a couple of more local guys, coming in kind of under the radar and a little underwhelming, I think is fair to say from the Gamecock fan perspective, but just getting a national article written on The Athletic about the G.G. Jackson situation. Seemingly a really good fit culture-wise, I think. From a personality, 180 degrees difference, sideline demeanor than what Gamecock fans saw with Frank Martin the last decade. And I think it's fair to say, I don't know, it might have been a 50-50 split, but I was going to say, I think it's fair to say most fans, if they could have had their preference, would have said, man, that's not my thing. I would prefer my coach not have a sideline demeanor like that. And just the rating of the players. Again, don't get me wrong. I think Frank's going to be a really good fit at UMass. I think it's going to go well for him there. But so to have Frank Martin and Will Muschamp as your head coaches for as long as Carolina fans did, because Frank Martin did come in with a great reputation, don't get me wrong, and a proven reputation in college basketball, and a guy that had the opportunity to really turn South Carolina basketball around. The Final Four run, absolutely off the charts, incredible, mind-blowing. But you always had a percentage of fans, whatever that percent was, that was not going to be okay with how Frank treated players during games. I think that's very fair. And then you had Will Muschamp as well, with his sideline demeanor that he brought in was pretty similar. Being a fiery guy on the sidelines during games. He toned it down as a head coach for sure, and at South Carolina for sure, but never connected with the fan base. And so, not that Muschamp and Frank ever clashed. Certainly not like the Kentucky thing yesterday of John Calipari coming out saying, no offense to our football team, but Kentucky's a basketball school, Alabama's a football school, Georgia's a football school. We need to get this practice facility built, this museum built. The state of Kentucky needs to help pay for it as well. We got plenty of guys made plenty of money in the NBA. They'll pay for it. Let's get this thing done. And Mark Stoops taking offense to that as a basketball school. 4 straight postseason wins. I mean, just kind of stoking the flames. Troy says, top 2 for me. Field of Dreams, Bang the Drum Slowly. I'll have to think about the rest. I'll have to check out Bang the Drum Slowly. Craig enjoys the Sandlot with the Wendy Peppercorn reference. Now, Frank Martin's antics wear on you after a while. I think that's a good way to put that. Draining. It can be. It's just a draining way. And to have a coach say that he doesn't really like games is fascinating to me. Frank Martin is, to me, maybe the most interesting man in the world. But to hear that's a really odd. That was always an odd thing for me to hear. But to see what's happening in Kentucky, what happened yesterday is odd as well. Like, what made, again, other than, unless they have like a really good relationship, which I would respect massively if Mark Stoops sent Cal a text before sending out this tweet. Maybe even if he cleared it with him, that would be the ultimate, right? Like, hey, man, I'm going to mess with what you had to say. We're really going to get this thing or maybe this was if I really want to go full conspiracy theory on you, let me take a dramatic swig of my water first while I think this out real quickly. I'm going truly conspiracy theory. Cal's down in the Bahamas, had a few. He's really ticked off because he's the University of Kentucky coach. They're the Bahamas right now. He gets whoever he wants to get, however he gets them at Kentucky, right? They go on to make a gajillion dollars. And all he wants, his practice facility was leaking the other day, I guess is the word. And so they couldn't practice or they couldn't do something. It's not bright and shiny enough. It was built way back in 2007, 15 whole years ago, I think. So maybe he was having a few. He sends out a text to Stoops. Hey, Stoopsy, going to have some fun with the media boys tomorrow. I don't know why I made him Steve Spurrier all of a sudden. Sorry, that was weird. But if he sent that text to Stoops and let him know, he's like, hey, man, help me. I want to get this thing done. I know you can help me out. This is the best way we can do it. I'm going to talk to a reporter tomorrow, and here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say Kentucky's a basketball school. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to respond with this tweet. That'll really get things going. That'll get Kentucky fans talking. That'll get this thing done. I wouldn't put it past him. Maybe it's just because it's the end of a Friday show and wanted to open up the creative Had the creative juices going, feeling good about the weekend. One more weekend closer to real football. I get it. We got NFL exhibition football this weekend. If you're all into that, good for you. I'll turn it on. I'll have it in the background somewhere. Happy to have it for sure. Much rather have it than not. Don't try to tell me football season is here. Not quite here yet. We're almost there. And down to 23 days, I think, today? 22 days. Right? 3 weeks from tomorrow. Beautiful. Jason tells me not to forget the Vikings, 4:30, Sunday NFL Network. Jason, I would be with you if that wasn't an exhibition game. Don't forget it's an exhibition game. Oh, the baseball version of Brian's song. I got to check that out. Except it wasn't a true story. Then it's not the baseball version of Brian's song. That don't make any sense. Don't try to drum that up. Craig says to have a good weekend. Roger as well. Chris, too, on the Facebook live stream. He's got move-in day tomorrow. Be down to just one kid in the house again. Electric bill will get a break. Good for you, Chris. Good for you. Hope this program did for you what it did for me today. Got me in the right headspace headed into the weekend. Good time talking about a lot of Gamecock football mostly and some other stuff, Field of Dreams stuff, baseball, movies, good times. 8 to 10 every day, live streaming here. The video portion, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Tell everybody you can. Comment on the social media if you can. That would be helpful, but just you being here is the most helpful, and especially all of you guys who participated in the live chat today. Extra appreciated. We'll do it again on Monday, where we're that much closer to football season. Thanks for checking out today's version. Tim Hill, unrestricted free agent.